Good morning. It's good to see all of you online today. I'm Robin Hale with the OUUC Tech Team. And to all who are joining us on whatever platform you are using. This Zoom service is being recorded and it's streaming live to YouTube. We're doing worship from several locations today, so you'll see the service move back and forth between us. Most of our sharing happens in the Zoom chat box, which is not posted or shared publicly. We use the chat feature for greetings, song lyrics, affirmations and applause, and shared from the heart. We will be turning the chat on and off during the service today. We can expect some tech glitches as we continue to do all we can to optimize our connections. If you experience any technical issues during the service, you can reach out to Joe Celine or another member of the tech team for assistance when the chat is on. We appreciate the grace as we all remember, it's about connection, not perfection. Last, I hope you will find a candle or a chalice in a moment we can light them together. Thank you for your grace and adaptability as we all learn together.
Good morning. Let's sing together. Hymn number 1008, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we feel the faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our stories from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of this sacred space, and the God of our heart stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place. Thank you for singing.
Good morning. Welcome to the Olympia Unitarian Universalist Congregation online worship service. The OUUC community comes together in the mutual promises and possibilities of our covenant. We commit to live out our mission to be a liberal, religious community that opens minds, fills hearts, and transforms lives. I'm so glad you're here with us this morning. My name is Christine Park, and I'm a member of the worship arts team. Leading worship with me today is our minister, the Reverend Mary Gear, Sarah Lewis, our Director of Community and Faith Development, and Troy Fisher, our Music Director. Also joining in leading worship is Ann Colby, another member of the worship arts team. We give thanks for the tech team and for our media specialist, Joe Salim, for providing technical support today. And thanks to Administrator Darlene Sarkala, who keeps us informed and connected. As always, we are so grateful for the many hands, many of them behind the scenes, that make worship possible this morning. We welcome each of you to this celebration of love and life and wonder, and to this congregation. After the service, we invite you to stay online for a virtual coffee chat. This is a chance to gather in a small group to check in and say hello. Each breakout room will have a host to help make sure everyone knows each other and has a chance to share. Reverend Mary will offer reflection questions to get the conversation started. We hope you'll stay for the virtual chat. I want to draw your attention to the order of service, which is available on our website and which includes our announcements. Plan to stay after the coffee chat today for our talk show, After Church with Melanie Ransom. Today, Melanie interviews Emily Ray, longtime OUUC member and community historian. To participate, just return to the main session after the coffee chat breakout rooms. Our Thursday evening spiritual practice continues this week with a reflection on the monthly spiritual theme for March, commitment. Join Reverend Mary, Ann Colby, and Troy Fisher on Thursday at 7 p.m. for quiet reflection and community. This coming Friday, March 5th, will be the first of 3 all-congregational meetings to engage all of us as we shape our future vision, mission, and end statements. The meeting starts at 6:30 p.m. on Friday. We'll be getting more information about the 3 meetings, as well as a Zoom link, and you can find more detailed information on the OUUC website. There are so many opportunities to stay connected to our community. We have learned that social distancing does not mean social isolation. Please check the website regularly, and if you need help or have any questions, you can contact a staff member. We'll be glad to help you. Now, let us open our hearts and our minds as we prepare for worship. Welcome, everyone. It is good to be together.
Good morning. We take a moment now to recognize 2 losses to our community. Some of you may have heard that Pete Spiller, the husband of member Jan Spiller, died peacefully at home on January 21st. He was born John Spiller on September 26, 1935 in Wenatchee, Washington. He got the nickname Pete as a very young child when a visiting relative said that he looked like old Uncle Pete. And he was surprised to be called John when he started school. He attended O'Day High School, the University of Washington in Seattle, and graduated from St. Martin's College in Olympia. Following a career start in the insurance field in Yakima and Seattle, Pete moved to Olympia, where he served as the executive director of the Washington Fire Commissioners Association from 1979 to 2009. He worked tirelessly to identify and present the needs to the state's fire districts, to the legislature, to secure and protect their funding, and to provide commissioners and their staff educational opportunities. In retirement, Pete volunteered weekly at an American Lake Veterans Center healthcare facility where he enjoyed visiting, reading, and playing cards with the vets, even organizing day trips to the M-Bar Sea Ranch on Whidbey Island. Pete loved the ranch, the cowboys, annual trail rides, and helping disabled veterans ride no matter what the challenge. Pete also enjoyed boating on the Sound and restoring classic cars. Pete is described as a man of wit, humor, and wisdom, generous in many ways. He loved life. He was a doer, not a talker, and believed that spirituality was a private affair. His love of horses and dogs began when he was young, and he loved being a cowboy. Jan says she admired Pete's ability to be comfortable in the company of people who don't share his reality. Jan and Pete were married for 32 years. They shared a life together and basked in the love of Pete's 2 sons and their 5 children, as well as Jan's 4 children, 8 grandchildren, and 9 great-grandchildren. Pete is also survived by 2 siblings and many nieces and nephews. We send our love and care to Jan and their family as they mourn this loss. And we light this candle in memory of Pete Spiller. Today, we also honor the life of Brad Gupta. Brad died suddenly and quickly this past Friday morning in the company of his beloved partner, Robin Thompson. Bharat Prakash Gupta, Brad, was born in India on August 8, 1946. As a child, he developed a fascination with aviation and was blessed to have the opportunity to realize his dream to work in the field. After excelling in his education in India, he came to the US to complete his PhD in New York. Upon graduation, he began working for Bell Helicopter in Texas, which led to his career with Boeing, with assignments in California, Arizona, and Seattle. In retirement, his life was enriched with his volunteer work at the Museum of Flight and recently sharing his love of aerospace through Zoom presentations. While he has much to be proud of, his greatest joy was his daughter, Kimberly, and his large family in India. Brad and Robin have attended OUUC for several years and have contributed in so many ways. Brad was a regular and generous donor of auction items related to his love of planes and aviation, including private tours of the Museum of Flight. He was a steady support for Robin and brought his calm presence to OUUC. I knew Brad as a gentle and strong advocate for radical hospitality and inclusiveness in our community. Robin shared this about Brad. This kind, tender-hearted man cared so deeply for those he loved. He took delight in sharing his blessings with others. His spirit will live on in our hearts. May we know that our love is with him now and forever. Robin and Brad's family plan a memorial service in the near future. More details to come. We send our love and care to Robin, Kimberly, Brad's family in India, and all those who mourn Brad's passing. We light this candle in memory of Brad Gupta.
This morning and every Sunday morning, we join Unitarian Universalist congregations around the world in lighting a chalice, a symbol of our faith tradition. Please join me as we light our chalices together. These words are an eighth principle that is proposed to be added to our Unitarian Universalist 7 principles and is offered by Black Lives Union. We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions.
Our opening words this morning are offered by the Reverend Victoria Safford. The beloved community is not a goal or destination, and it was not any kind of idealistic Christian utopian dream, but instead a way of being spiritually, politically, economically, emotionally, intellectually. Beloved community is an attitude, an orientation of the heart. It's a disciplined understanding of your own relationship to other people, to everyone else on the planet, and to every living thing. It is a daily practice, a spiritual politics that requires inclusivity, nonviolence, and the hard discipline of radical hospitality. It requires love. Come, let us worship together.
Let's sing together for our opening hymn, hymn number 131, Love Will Guide Us. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night, and if I cannot sing like angels, if I cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love, for love will guide us. Peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. Thank you for singing.
Our story today is a new story about Raven. Once upon a time, when the world was very young, there was a great forest where the trees were tall and close together, so close together that it was rather dark down on the ground of the forest where many animals lived. Squirrels, mice, possums, short-sighted moles. But nobody went hungry in this forest, for although nothing much grew on the ground, beautiful berries grew up in the canopy and the top of the tallest tree. And each night when the west wind blew, the berries would fall down to the ground like gentle rain, and the animals would eat their fill. Well, one day, Raven flew by this forest. Raven had been flying for a while and was rather tired, so he came down and landed at the top of the tallest tree. And then he, who could see a line of ants on the ground from the top of the tallest mountain, spotted all of these berries in the tree. And he ate them, almost all. That night when the west wind blew, the animals of the ground waited in vain for the shower of berries to come down to them. This went on for about a week, and then the animals decided they might have to send a delegation of squirrels up to find out what was happening. The squirrels climbed up the tree and found Raven there. Dear Raven, they said, you're new here, so you probably just don't know, but we all on the ground depend on those berries. So by all means have some, but could you leave some for us too? Raven just looked at them. I, Raven, stealer of the sun and trickster of the moon, am far more important than you, he said. Why should I have to share? Well, we'll starve, the little squirrels said. Well, I'm not a monster, said Raven. So here's what I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll eat until I'm full, but then I'm sure there will be some left and they can fall down to you. You want us to wait for the food we need to survive and just trust that it will trickle down? Yes, said Raven. In fact, that is what I'm saying. Don't worry, this is the way of the world. It will trickle down. The delegation of squirrels had no choice but to just go back down and tell the other animals what they had learned. And Raven didn't mean to eat all of the berries, but the more he ate, the more his stomach stretched and the more it took before he started to feel full. And so he ate, and the little animals went hungry. In fact, he ate so many berries that he started to look rather un-Raven-like. He got really big until he looked pretty much like a bowling ball with two little feathery wings sticking out. And the branches that he sat on began to sag under his weight. Until one day, sitting on the branch and seeing yet another berry that he simply must eat, he reached out, stretched to get it, and the branch went snap, and he started to fall, and he fell like a bowling ball with feathers. He tried flapping his wings, but to no avail, and he fell down. Ooh, help me, he cried. And then he hit the ground like a cannonball. And the force of that fall pushed out the biggest burp in the long history of burps. And this burp projected all the seeds from the berries that were in his gullet, hundreds of seeds, and they scattered all around him on the ground. Well, Raven was a selfish fool, but remember, he was also a magical selfish fool. And so these seeds coming from his gullet were magic seeds. And as they got on the ground, they immediately grew into berry bushes. And all the animals of the ground yelled, "Yay, hurrah!" For now there were berries at a level where everyone could eat them. Yes, said Raven. I, Raven, stealer of the sun, trickster of the moon, bringer of the berries, absolutely did that on purpose. The other animals could see how embarrassed he was, so they didn't contradict him. Thank you so much, they said, and they lived happily ever after with their berries. While meanwhile, Raven had learned something of use. Sometimes there can be too much of a good thing, and the best things in life are shared. Thus ends our story.
We came together in community this morning, bringing all that is in our lives. In this space, we draw on the love of our beloved community to hold all that we bring here with us. If you would like to have something shared in the service, please look for the link on the online worship page on the OUUC website, or send me an email and we'll bring it into the service next week. In this space, we share from our hearts what brings us joy and sorrow, what brings us worry and delight, what makes us afraid and what makes us dance. Let's open our hearts to the complexity of life, ours and others. You will hear a drum beat as we share today. It brings into our awareness that our individual hearts beat, and together we create the heartbeat of our community. Right now, let's take a deep breath together, in and out, as we open our hearts to receive the complexity of all that is in our lives and community today. Once again, we send our love to the families of Pete Spiller and Brad Gupta. May you know that we hold you in care. Diana Larson Mills asks for healing thoughts as she recovers from a total knee replacement surgery on Friday. Diana is home and recovering well. To help her heal, she asks for no calls and would love funny cards to lift her spirits. You can find Diana in OUUC Connect, and we'll send the request out on Caring Friends. Diana, we wish you a speedy recovery and blessings on your healing. Kathy and Larry O'Connor ask for positive thoughts as Larry recovers from a mild stroke. Larry returned home from the hospital yesterday and is under Kathy's excellent care. Please, no phone calls just yet, but Larry would appreciate cards and emails. And you can find Larry in the OUUC directory, and we'll send the information out on Caring Friends. Larry, we send you our care and wishes for a full recovery. I invite you to share from your heart by entering in the chat box on your screen. This is the time to share all that you wish, joys and sorrows and whatever else is from your heart. As we take in what is posted, let's hear the heartbeat of our community and reach out our hearts in love and care to all those who share. I place a stone in the water for all that has been shared from the heart, a stone holding the complexity of our lives, held in the water of community. And we'll place one more stone in the water for all that we hold in our hearts and that remains unspoken. I invite you now into a time of reflection, prayer, and meditation. This seems like a good day to remember to breathe. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in peace, breathe out love. The breath of life flows through us. The breath of life flows among us. The breath of life flows beyond us to connect to the source of all life. The infinite web, the spirit of love, the mystery, the divine in all of the ways that we name it. Today, we open our hearts to those who mourn at this tender time. We send our healing prayers to those who are on the mend. We share the joy of those who are celebrating this day. We offer gratitude for this day, for this community, for this life. Breath, grief, healing, joy, gratitude, love. Blessed be, and amen. Let's hold a moment of silence together.
Let's sing together hymn number 1027, When the Poor Ones. When the poor ones who have nothing still are giving, when the thirsty pass the cup, water to share, when the wounded offer others strength for healing, we see God there by our side, walking our way. We see God there by our side, walking our way. When compassion gives the suffering consolation, when expecting brings the birth, hope that was lost, when we choose love, not the hatred all around us, we see God here by our side, walking our way. We see God here by our side, walking our way. When our spirits, like a chalice, brim with gladness, when our voices, full and clear, sing out the truth, when our longings, free from envy, seek the humble, we see God here by our side, walking our way. We see God here by our side, walking our way. And when the goodness poured from heaven fills our dwellings, when the nation works to change stranger is accepted as our neighbor. We see God here by our side, walking our way. We see God here by our side, walking our way.
Our time together, our prayers and meditation, deepen our gratitude for the sacred in our lives and in this world. Today, we have an opportunity to express that gratitude by joining together in service to our community and to something greater than ourselves. The offering we collect here accomplishes two important aims. It supports the ongoing work of OUUC, which is also supported by your regular pledges. This offering also strengthens a local organization that serves in harmony with our Unitarian Universalist values. Wild Grief is this month's recipient. We want to share a video about their work.
Hello, OUUC. My name is Brianna Trigg with Wild Grief, and I am so grateful to be here as part of your Share the Plate initiative. Wild Grief was founded in 2015 with the idea that in addition to peer support for grieving teens, there's something about being out in nature that can really impact a grief journey. And so we came together, a small group of us in Olympia, and founded this organization from scratch, built it slowly over the last 5 years with the intent to take groups of teens out on backpacking trips so that they could explore their grief together in and connected with the healing power of nature. In 2020, obviously the pandemic has really shifted all of our lives, and for Wild Grief, we have really seen the need for a community around grief and that connection to nature, particularly in this time of physical distancing, because our normal grief rituals aren't available to us. So we actually in 2020 have expanded our programs. We tripled our reach over the past year through virtual programs that combined peer support online in virtual spaces and individual outdoor exploration where participants came together online and then spent some time outside, came back together, and were able to talk about the impact of that nature connection, the activities they did out in nature, and what they are thinking about in their grief. Our programs started with that teen backpacking trip, but with this expansion, we have been serving families with children 13 and under, and also young adults. And we have also continued to hold our monthly hike habit, which is a 2-hour hike that typically is a Thurston County local hike, but now has turned into a virtual 2-hour program that brings in folks from at all ages. We call that our Infants to Elders program for anyone grieving any loss to be able to come together. So I'd like to invite any of you who'd like to join us. You can find information about our monthly hike habit on wildgrief.org. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be part of your Share the Plate program. We are so grateful, and we hope to see you on the trail.
You can participate in the offering by making a donation online through the church website or by texting the number that will appear on your screen in just a moment. You can also mail a check to OUUC. Our community partners continue to need our financial support. May the offering now be given from your heart, knowing that it is gratefully received.
working time, waiting for the welfare dime, 'cause they can't buy a job. A man in a silk suit hurries by as he catches a poor old lady's eyes. Just for fun, he says, get a job. That's just the way it is. Some things will never change. That's just the way it is. Ah, but don't you believe them. Said, hey little boy, you can't go where the others go, 'cause you don't look like they do. Say, hey old man, how can you stand to think that way? Did you really think about it before you made the rules? He said, son, that's just the way it is. Some things will never change. That's just the way it is. Ah, but don't you believe them. Well, they passed a law in '64 to give those who ain't got a little more, but it only goes so far, because the law don't change another's mind when all it sees at hiring time is the line on the color bar. No, no, that's just the way it is. And some things will never change. That's just the way it is. Ah, but don't you believe them.
Thank you for your generosity. Our first reading is offered by Senator Elizabeth Warren. There is nobody in this country who got rich on their own. Nobody. You built a factory out there? Good for you. But I want to be clear. You moved your goods to market on roads the rest of us paid for. You hired workers, the rest of us paid to educate. You were safe in your factory because of police forces and fire forces the rest of us paid for. You didn't have to worry that marauding bands would come and seize everything in your factory. Now look, you built a factory out there and turned it into something terrific or a good idea. God bless. Keep a big hunk of it. But an underlying part of the social contract is you take a hunk of that and pay forward for the next kid who comes along.
Our second reading is a quote from the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. from a speech originally titled, America's Chief Moral Dilemma. Dr. King writes, now, there are those who are trying to say that the civil rights movement is dead. I submit to you that it is more alive today than ever before. What they fail to realize is that we are now in a transition period. We are moving into a new phase of the struggle. The new phase is a struggle for genuine equality. It is not merely a struggle for decency now. It is not merely a struggle to get rid of the brutality of a Bull Connor and a Jim Clark. It is now a struggle for genuine equality on all levels. And this will be a much more difficult struggle. You see, the gains in the first period, or the first era of struggle, were obtained from the power structure at bargain rates. It didn't cost the nation anything to integrate lunch counters. It didn't cost the nation anything to integrate hotels and motels. It didn't cost the nation a penny to guarantee the right to vote. Now we are in a period where it will cost the nation billions of dollars to get rid of poverty, to get rid of slums, to make quality integrated education a reality. This is where we are now. And this ends our reading.
My very first job in state government was at the Community Service Office in Vancouver, Washington in the early 1990s. The CSO was commonly known as the Welfare Office. And in those days, people would come to the office to pick up their financial aid and food stamps in person. I was hired to be the local social worker for a new program called First Steps that was intended to help new parents transition to parenting while managing the requirements of receiving assistance and, well, just life in general. And as an aside, the statewide coordinator in Olympia for the First Steps program back then was Diana Larson-Mills. I never imagined that one day I would live in Olympia and serve Diana's congregation as the minister. Down in Vancouver back then, my soon-to-be boss asked me to show up for a job interview on the first day of the month, the day that everyone came to the welfare office to get their benefits. When I arrived at 9 a.m., it was packed with people overflowing out into the parking lot, some who had been waiting since the office opened at 8 a.m. with their children in tow. I learned later that the request was strategic. My boss said that he'd specifically asked me to come on the first day of the month, and that if I didn't flee, he would hire me. When I asked what he meant by that, he said that many are unwilling to work with people in poverty for many reasons, including that their stories are so hard to hear. This began for me more than 20 years of working in government programs intended to help people living in poverty, new parents, people with disabilities, seniors, and others in need of long-term care. The CSO in Vancouver was my first real-life exposure to people living in poverty. While my family was working class, we always had enough and other family to draw on when things got tight. I hadn't known poverty or the challenges that come from living in poverty. Working in state systems over the years brought me face to face with the cultural beliefs we have about poverty and the poor, and challenged me to examine my own beliefs, those I was taught and those that I developed over time. I experienced the welfare reform of the 1990s, which imposed time limits on assistance with the belief that everyone who is poor should be self-sufficient within a specified period of time, specified by those who have enough. Over the years, more restrictions were put in place by Congress based on a narrative of lazy welfare cheats, poor people who take advantage of the programs funded by the generosity of working people, and the belief that everyone has equal access to opportunity in our capitalist system, so should be able to support themselves and their families. And over time, I learned that none of these things are true in the real lives of people who live in poverty. And I learned that our system is built on mistrust, set to spend $5 to ensure that not $1 of assistance goes to anyone who is deemed undeserving. So fast forward to this past year, as we've faced a global pandemic, which for safety's sake required that we shut down many businesses, creating the highest number of unemployed people since the Great Depression. Last year, 10 million jobs were lost and have not been recovered, and 400,000 businesses have closed for good. If you pay attention to the narratives about the economic stimulus packages, you will hear some of these same themes emerge. If we are too generous with unemployment benefits, people will lose their will to work. People should have jobs that give them medical care. People are lazy and will take advantage. The reality is that the economic relief has mostly gone to people who need it for food, shelter, and medical care, and those who could have shared their stimulus funds with others. As we move through this pandemic, we are faced with a looming housing challenge as those who have been unable to pay mortgages and rent have been protected by moratoriums. Those without health insurance have been covered by federal and state assistance. There is an economic disaster waiting that will require massive assistance to prevent even more suffering, especially by those who are already on the margins. At the same time, last year saw the largest profits ever for tech giants, large corporations, and Wall Street investors. Our nation has 659 billionaires, that's billion with a B, and over the past year, their fortunes have grown by over $1 trillion. That's a 1 followed by 12 zeros. This 1% of the 1% has amassed wealth that is double the wealth of the bottom 50% of all the people in the United States, creating the largest wealth gap since the 1920s. So why is a wealth gap a problem? Research shows that inequality is bad for everyone's health. Societies with a big wealth gap have more mental illness, obesity, shorter life expectancy, child mortality is higher, children do worse in school, and there are more people who are imprisoned. But more importantly, the wealth gap highlights the fallacy of equality. Our economic, educational, and social systems assume that everyone has the same access to opportunities, so anyone can become a millionaire or a CEO or a Wall Street investor. The reality is that opportunity is not equitable and depends greatly on where you were born, who your parents are, where you are schooled, and the color of your skin. As author Chuck Collins, a self-identified 1%er, wrote, "It's easy to hit a home run when you are born on third base. Most of us are born on second or first, and way too many of us never even get a chance at bat." A belief in equality prevents us from acknowledging that moral and just solutions are based on a model of equity. Rather than assume that everyone needs the same, equality or what some call fairness, We must acknowledge that justice demands that some need more than others, equity rather than equality. And what I hear in our nation's narrative about poverty and wealth is a remnant of the Puritan colonizers of this land, who, along with the Calvinists, believed in predestination, which meant that God chooses who God will save, creating the elect who will be blessed in this life. And being blessed can be interpreted as being comfortable, even wealthy. And so being poor can be interpreted as not being chosen by God to be saved, not one of the elect, worthy only of charity based on the goodwill and generosity of those who have enough. This is a way that theology shows up in our culture and isn't even recognized as such anymore, because that's just the way it is, right? This Puritan Calvinist theology was rejected by our Universalist ancestors long ago, who asserted that all souls would be saved by a loving God. They rejected the idea that some are more worthy or that anyone would be outside of the loving embrace of God. This belief is reflected in the first of our 7 Unitarian Universalist principles, the inherent worth and dignity of all people. The second Unitarian Universalist principle says that we affirm and promote justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. This principle recognizes this important distinction between equality and equity. And with these two principles together, we assert that all are worthy and that equity should guide our human interactions. Unitarian religious educator Sophia Lyon-Fahs taught that it matters what we believe. Even if we don't recognize it as theology, what we believe informs our actions, and our actions create our relationships, our culture, our laws, and our society. It is this spiritual grounding that leads many of us to work for justice, not only relief for the immediate needs of those who are suffering, but systemic change toward a society that acts as if all are worthy of housing, education, food, healthcare, and safety. As civil rights attorney Brian Stevenson says, the opposite of poverty is not wealth. The opposite of poverty is justice. This month, we have explored the spiritual theme of beloved community, and I would name poverty and the fallacy of equality as barriers to beloved community. It matters what we believe, because what we believe can either help us build beloved community or it can prevent us from doing so. Over the years, as I have learned and grown and journeyed with people living in poverty, it was my faith community that helped me understand what I was experiencing, make meaning of it, explore and transform my beliefs, and work toward justice. At its best, our faith communities, including OUUC, can offer a place where we can each integrate our life experience, deeply examine what we believe, grow and change, and work together toward justice. I invite you to consider what you believe today in the breakout rooms and in the weeks to come. As we go forward as individuals and as a community, may we have the courage to discover and name our beliefs. May we be bold enough to claim that all are worthy. May we bring justice, equity, and compassion to all of our relationships. And may we come together to build a new way in service to beloved community. May this be so. Let's sing together as we build a new way.
Hymn number 1017, Building a New Way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. We are working to be free. Yes, we are working to be free. We are working to be free. Hate and greed and jealousy. We are working to be free. We can feed our every need. Yes, we can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. Start with love, that is the seed. We can feed our every need. Peace and freedom, it is our cry. Yes, peace and freedom, it is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without these, the world would die. Peace and freedom is our cry.
Please join me as we extinguish our chalices with the words we used to light them, the proposed eighth principle. We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote, journeying toward spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and in our institutions. May this be so, and may we move in peace.
Let's sing together our unison benediction. How bountiful the blessings that surround us. We come together grateful to be one. As we go forth and greet the days unwinding, the circle grows as pebbles thrown to pond. And know that Spirit guides us on our pathways, abiding in our hearts the bond.